Hi everyone, welcome to Beat Detector. In today's video, I'm going to demonstrate one of our services. We'll be doing a drum quantize using Beat Detector in Protools. So when is drum quantization useful? For me personally, one of the musical scenarios where I think it's invaluable is when a band or artist have synths that they need to sync to so the song grooves better. Arpeggiators, samples and other synced materials are a good example of that. Another example that's personal to me. Sometimes I'm listening to a song, everything sounds great, the mix is good, the vocalist and guitarist are doing a good job, but I get this feeling that something just doesn't feel right. Usually it's the tempo moving a bit too freely, or the drum patterns just don't sound consistent enough. Modern music production has made us more aware of tempo variations. Tight and in the pocket are now the standard. The same thing is happening with vocals. When was the last time you heard a recorded vocal out of tune? Some might say, I don't need this, I can just stretch the audio till it's on the grid. Well, you can do that, but usually it sounds bad. Drum kits are captured with multiple microphones where phase relationships need to be kept or the drum kit will sound wrong. By using Beat Detector, you never stretch the audio, so no weird artifacts are introduced by the time stretch algorithms. So, enough about what I think. This video serves primarily to show you the processes we use to enhance your drums. So let's get started. For this drum tightening process to work, the recording should be made along to a metronome or click. Okay, so let's have a listen to this 4-bar drum part with metronome switched on. And a quick listen without the metronome. This particular drummer did a good job sticking to the metronome, but essentially, if it's on the grid, it will make the production tighter once you start laying down the other instruments on the track. As you may have noticed, the recording engineer used a few different microphones on the kick drum. I need to find out which one was the closest to the sound source, which in the case of a kick drum is the beater on the pedal. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the inside kick microphone. I'll do the same for the snare. In this case, it was the channel labelled SN2, which is the second microphone located on the batter side of the snare. So far, we have channels kick in, snare 2, and we're going to grab tom 1 and tom 2 channels as well as the hi-hats and stick them close to each other because they're going to be the channels we're going to be concentrating on for the process. I'm going to open Beat Detector and have a quick look where my drum hits are falling on the grid. In this example, the beat is very simple and the kick and snare are falling on the quarter beat within each bar. I've set my grid to quarter notes in Pro Tools. Let's have a quick listen to the drum fill at the end. I'm going to change my grid view to 1/8 beat, but you'll notice that the tom hits don't fall on that grid. That's because this particular fill is in triplets. More on that a bit later in the video. So back in the plugin, I'm going to have Beat Detector analyze where the hits occur on my audio for the kick and snare. The detection points seem in the right place, so I'm going to go ahead and separate the regions. The next step I perform is to have a close look at each separation to check if the detection was accurate. Here's a case where the separation isn't at the desired location. Because the hi-hat was played just before the snare, a mistrigger sometimes occurs. I correct this manually. A similar thing has happened on the kick track. Changing the analysis settings helps with the detection if this sort of error happens frequently during the edit. During the end fill, we have a flam on the snare. Usually, the second note on the flam falls on the strong beat, so I'll rectify the triggering error. There's a ghost note here that wasn't picked up. I'll include that in the edit. Now for the toms. As you can see, the hits are not falling on the grid. In this case, the tom fill is in triplets. You can see this on the grid when I switch it to triplets. Once the grid is in triplets, the grid lines are closer to where the tom hits fall. This will be important when we later on conform our drums to the grid. I usually put the breakpoints in for the toms manually without the assistance of Beat Detector, as the time difference between the two processes is negligible. I already had a group created for the drum tracks. I'm going to arm it so all the further edits affect all the tracks of our drum recording. Next, I'll put breaks in our drum track on all the clip separations that we made earlier. Finally, we can start conforming our audio to the grid. I find that starting at the end of the track makes the process easier. I'm going to nudge the whole fill section to where it should start on the grid. Again, notice my grid in Protools is set to 1/8 triplet. I'm going to quantize the section manually to show you what the Beat Detector plugin does. Now I'll undo that and do it with the plugin. I'll select the section I want to quantize, hit Capture Selection and make sure Protools has the right meter values. I'm also going to make sure that the correct grid is selected and then hit the Go button. That sounded good. Let's continue with the edit. Here, to maintain the natural feel of the flam, I'll edit it by hand. I'm going to continue with the edit using the same procedures as before. You start to get the picture of how it's done. Because there are so many variables, it's best done by someone who's quite patient. I'll click off the triplet function in Beat Detector, as I won't be needing it for the rest of the edit. Here, I'm adjusting a few bits by hand as they were in between bars. I should be able to quantize this whole section in one go. Nope, that last beat is still in triplet feel, so I'll go back to the triplets. As the other notes fall on quarter beats, the triplets function in the plugin won't adversely affect them. Okay, that looks better. Let's have a listen. Cool, now that sounded in time. The next step will be to use the Edit Smoothing function. Beat Detector will create a fade before each cut, so there's no clicking and popping. Let's have another listen, now with the fades in place. That's sounding really good now, but I've noticed a little editing artifact. Just there. I know what that is. See that little blip on the fade on the hi-hat track? It's basically the start of the hi-hat that's directly in front of it. We'll need to move that fade so there isn't a double hit. So this sort of thing happens all the time. I'm going to go and check the rest of the track for similar edit artifacts. Yeah, that was good. Now with the metronome. The very last process is consolidating the audio and sending it back to you. So this is the process we use at Beat Detector. Hope you've enjoyed it.